Hey guys, this is Pastor John here again, and welcome to part 4 of our 5-part daily prayer challenge based on 2 Chronicles 7:14. And there's these 5 critical components that God says, listen, if you'll do these things, I'll bring healing into your land. Let me put my sunglasses on because it is hot. I'm facing the sun. If you'll do these 5 things, if you do these 5 things, I will bring healing to your land. I also believe it has to do with not just our land, but our own personal lives, our families. And so that's what we're challenging you to do, to pray through these 5 things. And the first day we looked at that, my people, that first part of that passage, if my people. And then he said, you're called by my name. And then he said, humble themselves. And so the second day we looked at humility. And I challenge you to pray this every day while you're kneeling down as a stance of humility. And the third thing was to pray. And I was up at Mount Helix yesterday, and we challenge everyone to pray, not just for themselves, but to ask God to bring healing and change to our nation and my family and myself. And today, part 4, I want to challenge you to seek his face. He said, if you'll seek my face. And what does it mean to seek his face? Well, I want you to think about something. Yesterday, I was at Mount Helix, and I couldn't get into Mount Helix unless I knew someone. There's a big gate. If you've been up, there's a big, beautiful metal gate. And there's no way to get into that place unless you know someone. And I had some good friends, and they have the code, and they have access to Mount Helix. And so it was because who I knew, I was able to get into Mount Helix. And I want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine that now I'm standing just a mile or so from my home. There's some beautiful homes in these hills, and I just drove over to a random house here. Hope it's okay. And I'm filming their gate behind me, if you see that. Now I want you to imagine that, you have a house like this or a beautiful gate like this, and there's a code to get in, and there's someone that you want to get to, you want them to come and hang out with you, a friend, or maybe it's a son or daughter, and you've extended this invitation that, hey, here's the code. I want you to come to know me. I want you to have meals with me and hang out with me. And you give them the code, but they don't hardly ever come over. And when they do come over, they just want to borrow stuff or they want money. And they leave right away. They don't seem to want to hang out with you. Well, that's kind of what we do with God. He's provided this access to him. He says, you can seek my face because Jesus Christ came to this world and died to remove the separation of sin between us and God. And in last week's message, and we talked about breaking the veil, that God tore the veil. When Christ died, it broke the veil, it broke the separation between us and God. We have access to God. God is knowable. He has a personality, and he wants us to know him. Look at it, it says in Romans 8:15 in the New Living Translation, it says, so you have not received a spirit that makes us fearful slaves. We don't have to be afraid to come to God. He says instead, you received God's Spirit when he adopted you, something he did, right? And it goes on, he adopted you as his own children. Now, we call him, Abba, Father. Do you see the kind of relationship God wants to have with us? He gives us an example of this father who loves his children and wants his children to know him. Look, God doesn't need us, but he wants us and desires us. That's incredible. He gives us access to him through his grace and the work of Christ on the cross. And really, what do you really have to offer God anyway? I mean, what do you have that he doesn't already have? Well, I'll tell you what you have. You have your heart, your devotion, your love, and seeking his face. This is something you can offer to him. It's kind of the scandal of heaven, really. From the angel's perspective, it must be incredible that God of the universe, the glorious God who created everything, would stoop so low to know his children, his creation, and for them to turn away and say, nah, that must seem so crazy to the angels. Now, it's okay for us to come to God with our needs. He wants us to come to him with his needs. He wants to be the provider for us. But first, he wants us to come to him. In James 4:8, it says, draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Well, what does this look like, and how do you seek God? Well, the first thing I want to say is you just read his word. I mean, think about how he has chosen to reveal himself. If you want to know him, if you want to seek his face, the first and biggest thing is read his word. Get to know what his personality is like. Get to know him through his word. He's revealed himself that way. And of course, ultimately through Jesus. Another thing you can do is just spend time alone with God, meditating on who he is, his character. And you know what else you can do? You can journal, but you can also just be quiet and sit at the feet of God or sit at the feet of Jesus and just listen and tell him I'm here for you. I love you. I want to be here with you, not because you're going to give things to me or because you're going to do something for me, but just because you're worth it and I want to know you. And so perhaps you want to close your eyes as I read this passage because it's such a powerful passage. I believe it's from Psalms 27, verse 8. And this is the New Living Translation again. But just listen to this passage. Maybe close your eyes. This is a person responding to God. The psalmist who wrote this responding to God. My heart has heard you say, come and talk with me. My heart responds, Lord, I am coming. And so what I want you to do every day is what I've been doing is I get down, I kneel, and I just begin to do those 5 components. I thank God that He's made me part of His family, that I am part of His people. I thank God that I have a place, that He's my Father. And then I say, God, you've given me a purpose, and I want to accomplish that through your people. Second thing I do is I say, if my God or if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves. So I'm kneeling down. I humble myself and say, God, I really do need you. You really are Lord of my life. What is your agenda? What is your idea of success? And I say, God, help me to remove my idea of success and replace it with your idea of success. And help me to go to you for my needs. And I begin to go to Him for my needs. And then the next one is pray. And so I pray for my own transformation. I pray that God would help me be a better husband. I pray that I would have more of the fruit of the Spirit. I pray that I'd be more like Jesus, and I kind of go through those things. And then I begin to pray for my nation, for my church, for my family, that I would see God move powerfully. And then the next thing is I seek His face. I just say, God, you're worth me pursuing and being with you. I did it this morning without any strings attached, just to be with you. And I quiet and I just sit there and I just say, I love you. And it gets to a moment of quiet before Him. And then the last thing is to confess our sin, right? To turn from our sin. And so I sit there and I say, God, forgive me. And things come to my mind. And I'm saying, God, help me to turn away from these. I'm so sorry. And I believe God's going to bring a great work in my life, but also yours if we'll do this. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. God bless you guys.